Welcome everyone to another edition of Play It Through, and on this edition it's Super Mario World Randomizer, a special ROM hack that randomizes the assets of the levels of Super Mario World and creates a new experience for what is my personal favorite game in the Super Mario franchise. This means levels are done completely out of order. While the main map remains the same, the levels and the order you're going to be doing them is changed up, as well as a lot of the assets as far as the backgrounds, color schemes, the enemies and where the enemies are placed, as well as power-ups, even sometimes changing up the power-ups. There's a large variety of different settings that you can actually change up to create your own randomized version of Super Mario World. Now this is actually the third attempt I'm doing of this at this point. I've had a lot of issues with hard drive failure, as well as a couple of other video issues over the last week or so trying to get this video out. So I have had a little bit more experience than I would have liked going into this randomizer, but hopefully it will still be a fun and enjoyable video for everyone to enjoy. Now, as we start off, you'll notice immediately that I'm playing as Luigi, and that is because that's one of the other things that randomizes, picks whether you're Mario or Luigi. Sometimes power-ups get changed, though I will be having the normal power-ups in this one, your Cape Feather and Fire Flower. One of the other randomizers I had messed with actually changed the Fire Flower into a Hammer Brother hammer, like the hammer suit from Super Mario Bros. 3, which is a really cool little change-up. I also love that in this level, which is the level that normally is Soda Lake, that we're doing now as the very first level of the game, watching out for all the Torpedo Teds as they're speeding towards me. They actually speed up the scrolling in the level as well. Stuff like the scrolling, as well as water and placement of water. You can add water to levels that didn't have it. Sometimes you can even remove water from levels that do have it, though there are some issues with that, so that's one setting I didn't change. And so there's a good amount. Like, I definitely do a search if you're interested. Super Mario World Randomizer on Google, you'll come right across it. And like I said, there's a lot of different things. One of the things I also like to do is, doesn't really do much else, but they have a whole bunch of random names that you can give levels, and actually just change up the level names in general. For example, right here we're doing the Blue Switch Palace, which is not the Blue Switch Palace. It's actually the typical yellow Switch Palace that normally is here. All the Switch Palaces get changed up, as well as the Secret Zone. And as far as levels go, they all get changed up to the point that you could have a castle at any point, or a mansion, you know, one of the ghost houses at any point. You're not sure what level it's going to be until you end up making that point. Those stuff like castles and ghost houses, like you can see, the first level of Donut Plains is already going to be a ghost house once we're actually able to get to that. Now this level, which is normally Yoshi Island 2, is now known as Unnatural, which actually ends up being what would be Yoshi Island 3. Though, as you'll also notice, of course, like I said, backgrounds and color schemes of the stages end up getting mixed up. Now, because of the nature of everything that I've gone through in the last few weeks trying to get this video together, and this is now the second time I'm doing a full commentated run of the game, I'm doing a shorter, kind of basic run of Super Mario World. I'm going to be going through the levels to kind of go through each of the islands and the worlds and completing it. But I won't be doing Star Road, I won't be going to the Special Road, but I will at the same time not be using the shortcut either. I'm going to try to do as much of the levels as possible. Probably skip out on some of the Switch Palaces as I go through, just to add a little bit of challenge here and there, throw in just to the overall mix of everything. But I think this will be a great example of what Randomizer can do and what it can provide. And if people are interested, if this video does well and you are interested, let me know, of course, down in the comments if you want to see me do another Randomizer in the future. And of course, it'll be completely different. The level designs not only will be switched up again, we don't know what levels we're doing, but I also will do a 96 gate, or at least attempt to do a 96 gate run of the Super Mario World Randomizer for the future. That was a really nice throw there at the end of the level with the shell to take out the charging chucks. I ended up missing the one I was aiming for, but ended up shoving all the way through the other charging chucks before the goal ends up being hit. Like I mentioned, Super Mario World is my personal favorite Mario World game. It's the one I play the absolute most of any Mario game ever. And a lot of the reason was, not only did I play it, of course, a ton as a kid, but years later, when I was in college, I had the Game Boy Advanced version of Super Mario World, and I had like a couple hour gap between classes on one semester, so it was like a long enough gap where it was like, you know, pretty significant break, but not long enough that it was worth like going home or going too far away from the campus. So I spent a lot of that semester, like almost every day, and it was a Monday, Wednesday, and Friday setup for that class. I would play through Super Mario World and get every gate, all 96 gates, and I was doing that 2 to 3 times a week during college. I don't know why it was able to keep my interest for that long. The Game Boy Advance version does have some minor differences, including that the changes to the color schemes and the enemies that ends up having after you beat the special world don't end up getting put into place until you end up getting all 96 gates. Which I think was a little bit of a disappointment, because at that point I've already gotten all 96 gates. I'm not really, you know, redoing older levels. But one of the other things they changed up as well for that version is they did make Luigi a bit different playing. So it was fun to play as Mario or Luigi during that particular version of Super Mario World, because they did have their differences that not as many Mario games had, and this one doesn't. Original Super Mario World with Luigi does not have any of his differences that were first introduced with Super Mario Bros. 2, aka the Lost Levels. So there you have the actual end of Yoshi's Island there, as we move on to Donut Plains, and the first level ends up being Iggy's Castle is what it's called, but it's actually a ghost house. And it's this is the ghost house, which is normally Forest of Illusion. If I mess up on the names, I'm sure you guys will correct me if I mix up where the level placements are. While I have played Super Mario World quite a lot, doing this randomizer for the last couple of weeks that I've been messing with it, I kind of am going to question a little bit of my knowledge of Mario World, because now everything's been mixed up, and I've done a few randomizers, and now I'm quite, like, I don't know where every level actually originally was, but I'm pretty sure that at least the beginning part was definitely from the Forest of Illusion ghost house. Now, with ghost houses and the castles, individual areas of them can change up, as well as the exit goals change up. So I'm going to be using the goal right here, or at least attempting to. Thankfully it is one. As you can see, water has been added to this particular area. It's one of those changes that can end up occurring. But inside the castles, when you go through doors or pipes, you may come out to a different part of another level. Sometimes it's another part of another castle, sometimes it's part of a ghost house, or just other different entities in general. Like, you'll just come out of like a different one and then go back and finish up the castle that the first part of the castle was a part of. Like, there's a lot of stuff that ends up getting all kind of twists and turns and changed up as you're going through, which ended up adding just like a really cool thing. I just recently did the Legend of Zelda Link to the Past randomizer, which I really did enjoy, but there was only so much they could change in it. They changed all the placements of all of the weapons and items and stuff like the rupees and hearts and stuff in that, but they're not able to, of course, change up as much. So it would be interesting if there was a way for them to kind of randomize certain rooms, or maybe the bosses in the Link to the Past randomizer, to add a little bit more to it. With this one, also with bosses, speaking of those bosses, while they play mostly the same, though I did see some weird stuff. One of the randomizers I had actually added, like, instant death lava to one of the bosses that normally didn't have, like, lava at all, which added definitely a bit of challenge to it. But also the amount of hits that bosses take changes up. So you may have a boss that takes just 1 hit, 2 hits, or even more hits. And the same goes for actually each part of the Bowser fight as well. It changes up the amount of hits that he takes. Any of the scrolling levels usually aren't quite as fun as the kind of just go as quickly as you can while platforming through the levels. But there are like 3 or so stages probably in Super Mario World that I'm like not a humongous fan of, like my least favorite stages. And this is probably right up on there as one of my least favorite stages. I think my least favorite, though, is the first level in the Valley of Bowser, when you have that sand that you have to kind of like work your way very slowly through that large sand maze at the end of it, and it just takes forever to try to get your way through it. That's probably my least favorite level. As well as the one with all the like lava, and they have like the little skull platform things, and Blarg is in there. And it's a very slow level because you have to like wait for those moving platforms to kind of get your way through. Because of low-hanging ceilings, it's very hard to use your cape feather to, you know, fly your way through. Now at the end here, I ended up in a room that was not normally how that ends, but as you can see, I was able to use the key and go through, and that actually was the correct way to go. And now the next level is this fun level, which is normally part of Vanilla Dome, but instead this level has a bunch of water added to it. And that's just like this really cool thing, seeing that level that you've probably, you know, done a million times. You play Super Mario World as much as I have, and adds that water to it. And you're never sure what of the exits is the correct one, so you kind of sometimes have to do both exits or multiple exits to try to figure that out. So there we go. Since that was the correct one, we'll just keep on going. Like I said, I'm doing kind of a relatively basic run here of the game. I had a little bit more detailed one that I had finished, and then I was actually rendering it after I finished my commentary on it. And that's when my hard drive died, in the middle of rendering that video. In fact, it was like 70-some% complete, and I would have been uploading it right after that, and nope, it decided my hard drive just like, nope, failed, and it died. So I had to completely scramble in the last couple of days to be able to get another video out for the Super Mario World Randomizer. So like I said, I hope it's still somewhat enjoyable, even though I think the commentary probably would end up being better on the first one. I like how the level was named Galaxy of Spikes. Now this is Ludwig's Castle, apparently, is this level. And now this is a stage that I've done a few times in randomizers, and it's always the exit that I need is the pipe. So I'm just going to go ahead and jump down this pipe now. And there's the exit. I've done this level several times in randomizers, and every time it likes to mix up that pipe and make that pipe the exit. I don't know why it does that. Maybe it's just dumb luck that I've had a couple of randomizers end up doing that, but there we go. Now on to what normally would be a castle, and this is Jungle Boo's Haunt, or Haunt. Jungle Boo's Haunt, which ends up being the beginning, at least. I don't know if the whole level will be it, but the beginning of the Sunken Ship. One of the coolest levels, if not the coolest, or my favorite level in all of Super Mario World. Just such a cool setting. The whole kind of Super Mario Bros. 3 ship, style of ship that is now crashed underwater. As the second part of the level ends up being completely different. Like I said, they will mix up these levels and give you random other pieces of other levels and put them in such a different order with different enemy typings and all that stuff, which really definitely makes the randomizers fun and exciting. You also gotta love how many charging chucks ended up getting put at this particular spot. So not only do I have to be quickly across all the sand, I also have to worry about there's charging chucks coming at me. And now look, the end of it ends up being the other part of the sunken ship, which this part's always fun, descending to the very, very bottom, watching out for the spiked balls. There's the stars. Thankfully, you can get a couple stars if you need it, but it's fun just to go without the power star and just see if you're able to manipulate your way through the spiked balls at the end and land safely on the question mark thing that allows you to complete the level, the question mark orb. Which, since the level was kind of a throwback to Super Mario Bros. 3 anyway, that's kind of like the same icon. I don't know if it was it meant to be, or did it just somewhat look like the kind of orb that you normally would get at the end of a fortress in Super Mario Bros. 3 when you end up defeating one of the Boom Boom enemies, and once you defeat them, they end up leaving those orbs you can pick up and complete the stages. Now, unfortunately, I won't be able to take the secret path here, so whatever exit ends up being the secondary one is the one we're going to do. You can, if you're really good with the cape, I think, maybe able to get up there even without having the purple blocks, or red blocks, is what I think they're officially are, but I always called them purple blocks. And now we end up getting this fun room, where you slide down a whole bunch of hills in succession as you're making your way down. Watch out for the end part, because like even though you can slide down the rest of them easily, that very end part they kind of like bunch up, and you can end up accidentally running into them and end up getting hit by that. Now, if you're interested in a more kind of traditional playthrough where I kind of do my typical commentary on helping complete the levels and all that, I did, of course, did a playthrough of Super Mario World years ago. I don't know how well it holds up, as I'm not a big fan, of course, of any of like my videos, let alone my older videos especially, but if you want to, you can search Super Mario World on my YouTube here, and it'll come up, and I'll link it at the end of this video. If you want to see kind of a more traditional run of Super Mario World, which I do get all 96 gates, of course, through the playthrough there. But it's been so long, hopefully that video is still somewhat fun or interesting to watch. I also love that the enemies at the Lakitus, or Lakitus, people like to yell at me no matter what I call them, so whatever you call that enemy is throwing charging chucks out instead of throwing the spinies. But I've heard it Lakitu, Lakitu. I mean, from everything except for like Zaboomafoo is pretty much what I've heard his name called. And no matter what you end up calling any enemy in any old school retro video game, you're going to consistently get told in comments. Or if you even say it at a retro thing, you're talking to friends who actually know the games or stuff, they'll say, no, you're saying it wrong. You gotta say it like this. I don't know, like, it's one of those things where half the time things are written down, you're like, how did the original creators want that said? And then you wonder, even they sometimes are like, oh, I don't even know, I just thought it looked cool. I forget what it was. There was something that I saw that was some game, and it was like a weird spelling of something, and they didn't know how to pronounce it, and they didn't even know. The creator of said creature wasn't even positive on what it was. As we end up finishing up that fun level, which was Kaizo Secret Condo. Of course, I'm not a fan of Kaizo-based Mario ROM hacks or ROMs. I like difficult, fun Mario games, but I need them to be like still plausible that like they could have been created and been a part of a Mario title for me to actually like be able to fully enjoy it. Now this level is always fun with a lot of slopes and a bunch of lava with those like little moving ramps, as well as of course the giant moles. One of the coolest enemies. They're sunglass wearing guys. They're just so awesome. And they can easily be taken out with the cape. But, like, as a kid, like, I would try to, like, jump on. You can't jump on them. You can actually ride across them. You can't hit them with, like, Fire Flower. I don't think can actually knock them out. Maybe they can. But, like, the cape can. But it's just, like, they're so cool. Like, they should not be able to get hurt by anything, honestly. Wow, we actually get 2 levels back-to-back with the giant moles. And with the randomizer, that's not something that I would actually have expected. So, that's kind of cool. Now this level's fun. A little bit of a maze-like area that you have to work your way through with a lot of the moles getting in the way, and since there's only a little bit of space between the ceiling and the mole, you kind of got to be a little bit careful. Up here in the upper right is this 3-up moon. One of the weirder 1-up things. I'm pretty sure they only appear in this. Let me know in the comments if the moon power-up for like the 3 life, does that appear in other Mario games? I'm not positive. I know, obviously, this one, but other than that, I'm like, I don't even know if I remember seeing the moon in other ones, at least maybe not retro ones. Now, obviously, the path I've been taking is the alternate path that you normally may not take during these levels as we make it over to the bridge segment here, working our way towards Cookie Mountain, where normally Ludwig would be waiting for us. But I don't know what we're going to have waiting for us once we end up making it up to there this time. Even though some, of course, it's cheating a little bit using the cape feather a lot. I love using it so much. It's so fun to be able to glide and time the little movements correctly so you can get by. That's actually the first level of the game. That was Yoshi Island 1. Just looked a little bit different with a different color palette to the floors and the levels and the level itself, but we end up doing that as we make it to the second part of the bridge, which ends up being Calzone Cave 2. Which is this level. This is the level I mentioned earlier. I hate this level. The lava's been replaced with the gray, darker brown. I don't know what that was. What is that supposed to be? Is it supposed to be tar? Is it supposed to just be like brown lava? Chocolate? Melted chocolate? Could be melted chocolate. I mean, there's a lot of food-themed areas in Super Mario World. As we're dealing with Blarg. jumping out, which looks a little bit out of place because of the color scheme of Blarg and then that stuff, but try to jump up here, and you can get past a little bit of the level, make the level go by a little bit quicker by taking the upper path here and going to this pipe. You don't really make it too much quicker by taking a little extra area, get some extra coinage, or towards extra lives if you need it. Though, Super Mario World, even, like, as a kid, like, it would be a game you could have so many lives, and if needed be, I could use, it was like probably the worst idea ever, but I remember as a kid at one point I would use Top Secret Zone to get a lot of lives. Just one life individually every time you boot it up because you have the Yoshi, and every time you get a Yoshi when you have a Yoshi, he's a 1-up. I don't know why I wasted time. There's so many better levels to do that in, but I think it's because it's so early. It's relatively early. The level that is probably my favorite, the spam 1-ups in, as far as this game's concerned, though you really don't need to. I just liked maxing out the life counter at 99 just to be like, hey, I maxed out my lives. But Forest of Illusion 1, where you have the mystery like box that has all the items in it, and then getting the star out there, and then hitting all those wigglers and all, and they give you a ton of extra lives. That was a really fun level to consistently keep redoing. And I would like, never beat the level. I would just start the halfway marker and then die at the very end of it, so that way I could just kind of like restart it. Or maybe you can do the skip out and come back in once you beat the level once. It's been a little bit since I've done it, so I can't remember if you can actually do it that way, but yeah, I did a lot of Forest of Illusion 1 over and over and over again. Also, no matter what this level ends up being, which it ends up being the opening world, the title screen level, which was such a cool experience the very first time I ever got to it. And you're going through Special World, and then, like, you've always seen the title screen. I played the game a lot at that point, and then seeing the title screen so much, and then be like, oh wow, there's actually, that level is actually in the game. Though I think it's slightly different. The title screen version is slightly different than the actual level. But it's pretty much the same stage. Though this level, as you can see, has clearly been destroyed due to things not loading right. That's one thing that happens with the randomizer, is palettes get swapped up and stuff, and characters and enemies aren't usually on certain palette types, so because of the changes, enemies get corrupted, which just leads to fun. As we just complete It's Lit Fam. Easily my favorite level stage now. Forever that stage will be It's Lit Fam. As we make it into the Forest of Illusion, starting off with this fun level, which is normally one of the bridge levels. And I always love to use the cape feather here, and work my way across using the cape to kind of glide across. Just because that's so cool. It's so much quicker, of course, but it takes a little bit of skill, especially if you hang out a little bit low. Try to just barely sneak your way over all the various saws that are coming at you. Love doing that. One of my favorite little things to do. I always love testing the limits of the cape, like see how close I can kind of get there and just narrowly pass enemies as I'm flying through the stage. Add a little bit of danger, but there's always the failsafe that if you're doing that and you run in an enemy, you get like the kind of the twirl animation, and you're safe for, you know, like you get that little bit of invulnerability, you don't end up losing the cape. But in levels like that, if you end up messing up at the beginning, you may end up just falling to your death because none of the platforms ended up, you know, being able to get to you in time. Now, this is one of those levels where you really can't use the cape feather as effectively as a lot of the other ones because there's a couple of low-hanging pipes that end up getting in the way as I'm trying to fly through this. I'll go ahead and take the alternate path. We'll see if this ends up being the right one or not. But you always get those little extra lives if you want them and all that right near the end of it, which was a cool little thing. Trying to find that, though, initially was a bit of a pain, and you had to find the hidden exit, or else you wouldn't have been able to continue normally, because that level ends up just kind of putting you in that loop, and once you beat the alternate exit, then you're able to actually make it to the next stage. Now here is what's going to end up being the last level here of Forest of Illusion, which ends up actually being what would normally be the first level of Forest of Illusion, which has a few little additions here with the Lakitu throwing charging chucks at me, which is just ridiculous. I'm glad the game can hold up, though. I'd be afraid, like, if I stayed too long on the screen, if he kept throwing them, that the game would eventually just crash because of how big the charging chucks are. I don't know if there'd be some sort of sprite issue with that or not. Now, this is the level as a kid, though. I would always spam to get as many lives as I wanted to before I would end up advancing and going forward. I'll never forget getting Super Mario World as a kid. I got it for Christmas. The Super Nintendo came out that year. I got it for Christmas. And my parents were actually angry at me at the end of the day because I beat the game on the very first day I had it. I was able to complete Super Mario World very first day. Now, of course, 96 gates. No 96 gates. I'm going to attempt a very hard run and fly here to kind of shortcut this level a little bit. If you time it just right, you can kind of fly with the cape over here and kind of skip the other portion of that area instead of waiting all the way for that thing to kind of move around and then you being able to jump to it and you have to wait a good amount of time if you end up waiting. But it's a little bit risky to do so, but it's worth it in the end. If for some reason you end up failing and getting hit or you end up running into something, there is a couple of platforms you can land on and then wait for the thing to come to you anyway, as long as it's activated. But yeah, no, I was able to beat Super Mario World the day I got the system for Christmas that year. I had never played it prior. It wasn't like I played it at a friend's house. I was either 5 or 6 years old at the time Super Mario World came out and I actually got it as a kid. But I'll never forget my parents like actually being upset. They're like, "What? You already beat it?" Now, of course, you know, Santa Claus and all that, so they couldn't say, "We just bought it," but like, you know, of course, they had just gotten me the system for Christmas that year, so that's one of the cool things about Super Mario World. And I played the game so much after that, as I easily dispense of the boss here. You fight that boss so many times, you just kind of get used to being able to do the quick knockout and trying to knock him off. As we move into more of Chocolate Island here. Now we're going to what is labeled as Tubular, which is this fun level with the raising up and down mushroom platforms, along with a lot of random flying Koopa Troopas throughout the course of it. And then we end up getting another one of those segments that end up having the underwater area here right by the goal. Like I said, I love the touches of like that with the randomizer, being able to add water to areas that didn't have it before. And now, surprisingly, randomly, we actually get another castle. We hadn't had one like as a regular level for a little bit, so. And now it ends up being this one that has a few little fun things to it. Of course, the extra little thing at the end here where you can kind of jump up and go to the pipe in the upper right corner to kind of, a little bit of a shortcut, go ahead a little bit. In this case, takes us to this great room with one of the giant crushers. The smaller version, kind of, this room. And then into Bowser's Castle, into what is probably my favorite level, or favorite room from Bowser's Castle, just because not only do I think it has a cool design with all the weird designs for all like the curtains blocking the path, but also the fact there was that hidden feather in there, so you could get that power up and help you get through Bowser's Castle if you ever were having any kind of like trouble with it. And we end up getting the Wendy battle here, which you can see at the bottom has the purple gray stuff to it, along with the bouncing fireballs I gotta watch out for. But 2 hits and she drops down. Must be a pretty painful death there. Like the ones that get dropped into lava, the Koopalings that get dropped into lava, I really feel bad for. Maybe not so much the ones that are like, they just kind of like blast into the background and poof. But the ones that fall into lava, that must not be a good way to go out. But I guess Bowser taught them all how to deal with it. After all, of course, he's been dropped in lava more than any of them. Now, this is the level that has one of the weirdest concepts in all of Super Mario World, and it's actually also normally in Chocolate Island, so that's kind of cool that we actually got some levels that match up a little bit. But this is the one where you have a few different ways, like the coins you have, or how fast you beat it, or whatever ends up determining what of the exits you end up getting. Now, only 2 of them end up counting as separate exits, but still, there's a couple of different ways that the scenario can end up ending. We'll start off with the more annoying one, waiting a little bit for the time to go down. And if that's not the one that we need, we can easily get the other one, because it's a lot faster to get the second one. Watch out for plenty of these dinos here. And then we end up getting underwater segment here. Normally you have to kind of run, bounce off obviously that spring, and get past all the enemies on the right side. Be careful not to try to run into them as I finish up the stage. Now here's an underwater level, just because of, yeah, like you can see the animation on the main map, and it ends up being what is that level, that second level in the Donut Plains when you go into the lake for the first time. Pretty much the first level that has multiple exits, but you can see the sprites are completely out of whack here, with the a Boo sprite taking the place of the Rip Van Fish or whatever. It said it's like a sleeping Boo that changes between multiple different looking Boos, and then completely flips out once he ends up waking up. That's kind of funny. Like I said, this is one of those things because of the way the game handles the different palettes of the game as far as color schemes and stuff like that. And since they changed it up for this level, that's how the level ends up reacting to the change up in that. I don't even know how you say the name of that level. Apple Isthmus? And this ends up being one of the levels that normally is in the special road, and it has the whole gimmick of the water ends up rising and falling as you're making your way through, making it, of course, more difficult to kind of make your way through, as just so amazing how many enemies can be taken out with the game's cape. But there are a few enemies in the game that the cape ends up not being effective against, but so many get taken out by the cape. If you're able to keep it and get that timing down with it, just breeze through most enemies throughout the course of Super Mario World. I talked a little bit about the levels I disliked earlier, and I love, like I said, the sunken ship. But what are your guys, some of your favorite levels? Let me know down in the comments below. What are your favorite levels from Super Mario World? And is Super Mario World your favorite of the Mario games? It's my personal favorite. Like this and Mario 3 are probably my 2 favorite retro-style Mario games. And then, when it goes into 3D, of course, I love Super Mario 64 and Sunshine and Galaxy especially. But this will always be like the special place in my heart for Super Mario World. And a game, at this point I could if there was ever going to be a Mario platformer that I could blindfold, or at least attempt to blindfold, it would probably be this one. I don't know if I'll ever attempt to do that. I'd probably be like, you know, it'd probably be really hard to do. But I think with enough time, I think I could do it. A little bit of practice. Oh nice, we end up getting this level, which is one of the more interesting ones as well, just because normally you fly on the moving platforms and just, as they go up and down, watching out for all the Koopa Troopas and other stuff and collect some coins. It's kind of like a nice little bonus level. It's one of the extra ones that if you take a normal path through the game you don't end up seeing, because it's off the side of the Forest of Illusion, but still kind of cool level, and really short if you're able to have the cape feather and just fly your way across it. As we move on to Galaxy of Spikes 4, which is in the shape of one of the fortresses, but works as the Chocolate Island Castle for this particular randomizer run. watching out for all the buzzsaws. Once I learned as a kid that you could do the spinning jump and bounce off of enemies, and as well as the buzzsaws, things became so much easier to try to get through. The only thing that would ever still kill me is those really fast-moving giant spike pillars that are in some of the later castles and fortresses, such as Wendy's Castle, and then that fortress that leads to Bowser's back door, which is really weird to say Bowser's back door, but yes, that level. Oh wow, Reznor is like spinning at 1,000,000 miles per hour here, but thankfully still easy to kind of take out, even if the path below me ends up giving out as I'm still standing there. But thankfully once you kill Reznor, you can't fall down into the lava below. And for the what would be sunken ship level, we end up getting another actual castle, which this one we're going to use to immediately fly up into the air. And now we're in this room where we can quickly kind of climb along the fence. Still one of the coolest little mechanics that Mario World introduced, just the whole being able to move along the fence and being able to flip behind it using the certain panels and the enemies and their animations. It was just something that was really cool looking. And now an underwater segment here in this part, which is normally part of the fortress on the mountain after going through the left exit of the Vanilla Dome. But this time leads us to this, which ends up being the boss fight against Roy here. Still one of the absolute coolest looking things ever. When that thing raises out of the water, when you first complete the sunken ship level and go into the Valley of Bowser. Even if the Valley of Bowser had already been spoiled, if you had done certain things, either done Star Road or you went to some of the secret levels at the one in the Donut Plains or the one later on in Chocolate Island, so you kind of already got a glimpse of the final level. But if you hadn't seen it for the first time, you go through that thing and then into the Valley of Bowser. Just such a cool looking area in contrast to like everything else that's a part of the game. And for this lovely ghost house segment, we have to watch out for lava. Instead of having the cement turning into cement ghost booze that you normally have in that, we end up having a jumping fire, which that would be difficult if I didn't have a cape feather going into there to kind of fly up there and be able to get past that. Now here's the level that would lead upwards, and is apparently Wendy's Castle. And, oh no, please don't be the full version of this stage. This is, like I've mentioned very earlier on in the video, the level I hate the most when it comes to Super Mario World. Like, by far, the absolute worst level in my opinion. Not because of this segment, and not because of the end segment, but it's that middle segment. So hopefully we don't get it here. Hopefully we get something else, which, good, we end up getting this instead. This way we can just kind of fly above and glide our way through some coins if, you know, you want to easily make it through this. Much, much easier than that very, very slow-moving sand maze of doom that isn't difficult, but is just so obnoxious. The only thing good about it is you can skip it the first time at least if you have Yoshi with you, but unfortunately if you want to get the other exit, you would have to come in here and go up there and run across the ceiling of this area and get to that keyhole on the other side. But we'll take the normal exit here. Thankfully that maze isn't here, so hopefully, I cross fingers I still don't get it before we get to the end here, as we do have a few more levels left. before we end up reaching Bowser's Castle, but we're down to like the final 4 stages here. So we make it the Galaxy of Spikes 4, and it ends up being the last level of Forest of Illusion, which had that weird bubble thing, which was just kind of interesting and weird. And then, of course, this is one of the levels that you have to find the hidden exit in order to beat by going down the one pipe right near the end of the stage, because if you use the normal gate, it would just send you back to the beginning of Forest of Illusion. And you would have to work your way back down on the map. Not that that's difficult, of course, but it was just one of those things like, you had to really search. This is definitely one of the ones you first had to kind of search out the hidden exit. And we end up actually getting this level here, which I'm going to hit that, just in case I end up screwing up the fly here if I can't instantly get through the opening. At least that way I could grab onto the vine and shimmy my way up. Which the hidden exit ends up being the regular exit for that level. Do another little fly here just to make things a bit easier, but immediately I end up running into this, because it's this level, which is normally the level in Valley of Bowser that you access from Donut Plains. But it has a very different look to it because of the change up to the background and the level itself. Two levels left to go here in the randomizer before we end up making it to Bowser's Castle, and it ends up being the first level of Donut Plains, where you're first introduced to the Cape Feather for the first time, and just that whole really awesome mechanic of being able to take it from the Koopa Troopas and jump on their backs and cause it to go off. Also, the first level in the game to initially have the second exit, the first one to introduce the keyhole exits, like right there, but go ahead and take the normal exit. Thankfully, this is a pretty short level, so if I need to take the other exit, it's pretty easy to do so. And the last level we end up getting ends up being called the House of Terror. Quite frightening. And, ooh, this is actually a pretty, relatively difficult stage. It tries to trick you a lot, all the on and off switches for the various different paths that you end up taking the wrong ones. You end up falling into the pit below, or you end up running into the chainsaws, moving back and forth, you know, chisel saws, whatever these things are. And we are able to thankfully fly over, though, but try to tease it a little bit. Get a little bit close, but don't want to get too close to them. And now it's time to move on to Bowser's Castle, which can be completely rearranged as well. What's really cool is you can do something in the randomizer. You can have it like it's normally set up, or you can have it where all the rooms are switched up, and you still have to only beat 2 rooms, you know, 1 through 4, and then 1 from 5 through 8. Or you can actually do a gauntlet or mini gauntlet, where you are forced to do 4 rooms in a row, or you can have it set up where you have to do all 8 rooms in a row. This one I have set up just to do kind of the normal Bowser Castle setup, though all the rooms you can see are completely different, as this is not part of Bowser's Castle normally, this part here. If you're interested in seeing me do another randomizer, if this video does well, I will do the Bowser Gauntlet instead. Normally I end up picking like 3 and 7 usually, but I'll go with 8 this time around, which ends up being the net here. Thankfully, I had a backup cape feather to help me out, and makes this section a very, very little easy section. It's just funny how the change-ups of adding different rooms that are not part of Bowser's Castle and putting them here. But now the end of the level is still the same as normal. The Mecha Koopas and the Ninjas, the only level in the whole game they actually officially appear in. I always wondered, as far as core design went, was this level done early in development, and that's why the Ninjas and the Mecha Koopas were in and they weren't in other parts of the game? Or was it really done late and they decided to throw something cool in with the Ninjas in the last second? Just one of those random questions. Now, the boss battle against Bowser is the same as always, except the amount of hits that he ends up taking. which in this case ends up only being a single hit per cycle. So this will be a very, very easy boss fight. The ground itself, though, is icy, so that adds a little bit of extra challenge. You gotta be careful when you're running across the ground, as you can slip up. They made the ground icy here. But get good old Mecha Koopa up, and ooh, fire flowers from Peach in this instance. The best part about the Bowser fight, though, is always the music. I love this song. It's one of the coolest songs in all of Mario. It really gets you pumped for the fight. And I loved when they did Fortune Street on the Wii, they actually added a remix of this song into it. There's not many times where this song gets any kind of love, remix, or put into other Mario titles, but that was really one of the coolest parts of Fortune Street. And I highly recommend looking up the song. Even if you don't ever want to play Fortune Street or have never played it before, definitely check out the remix. It's really well done. And boop! There's the end. And now it's time to sit back, save the princess, save some Yoshis, and enjoy the ending to Super Mario World Randomizer. So there you have it, Super Mario World Randomizer. There is a different credits are done here instead of the normal ones. Plugging, of course, the randomizer, everyone who worked on it, and this thing about a speedrunner as well. But I really did enjoy it. I love the concept of the randomizer, and I would be interested in definitely checking out a couple other ones or doing some more Super Mario World Randomizer stuff maybe in the future, potentially. So if you're interested, like I said, let me know down in the comments. If the video does really well, it may be worth my time, of course, to go ahead and work on another randomizer run of it in the future. I know there's a few other randomizers. I'm not sure what other ones, if there's any other ones other than I know Link to the Past, the original Legend of Zelda, this one, and I know there's a couple for Super Metroid, but I'm not super familiar with Super Metroid like I am with Super Mario World or Link to the Past, so if it's a game I'm more familiar with, I wouldn't mind trying out some other randomizers, but I'll be going back and doing some more bootlegs and ROM hacks in the relatively near future to mix things up and keep things interesting as far as playthroughs go here on the channel. And of course, one of the awesome things about beating the game is not only the ending, which this game had a pretty good ending. I mean, is a launch title for the Super Nintendo, and there's only a handful of like even NES games that had like really good endings. But this one not only has a good ending, it also then has the enemy roll call, which is something I've always loved in any game that ends up having it. I remember one of the first ones I saw was like in Bubble Bobble had an enemy roll call when you got like the best ending or whatever. And some other games did too back on the NES days, but it was mostly that started a little bit later on. I've always liked enemy roll call. Of course, also the changes end up happening if you end up getting through the special world and you get the whole color scheme change to the entire world and the entire game. Then you get the enemies, not only their sprites changed up for the ending, but you also end up getting their different names, as their names are changed up a bit because of the little changes and stuff like that, which I always definitely loved as well. So as we see Bowser and all the Koopalings, it'll then go, of course, to the final screen, the end screen. And with that, it will wrap up this episode of Play It Through. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, consider giving it a thumbs up or commenting down below. If you enjoyed this playthrough of Super Mario World Randomizer, check out my original Super Mario World Play It Through from many, many years ago. Or if you want something a little bit different, I'm not a randomizer, I just did the Legend of Zelda Link to the Past randomizer. I also need to thank, of course, all the members of my Patreon. Without your guys' continued support, I cannot keep doing what I'm doing, so thank you all so much for supporting the channel and supporting all the content. If there are other randomizers, other ROM hacks, or maybe even bootlegs you'd love to see me cover in the future, be sure to write them down in the comment section below. But anyway guys, thank you so much for watching, and of course I hope you enjoy.